Hey guys, it's Duncan. I'm gonna be talking about hops and how they affect the flavor of the beers we make. So hops are actually in the cannabis family of all things. Hops grow on these long vines they call bines. Only the female variety produces the hop cone. This is essentially a hop cone. This has been dried and sort of baled and compressed. So imagine a little more sort of poofed out there, and that's essentially a hop cone right there. They can get processed into a number of products, the most common of which is the hop pellet. Essentially, they mash them up and they powderize them and then they pelletize them. They're a lot easier to add to a kettle, where using these whole hops are a little more problematic. We happen to use both. We use the pellets primarily in our kettle, and in our hop back, which is our separate hop unit up in our brew house, we use the whole hops. So the two things that hops give to beer primarily are your aromatic oils, which give the beer its flavor and aroma depending on the variety, and the bitter resins or the alpha acids, which contribute bitterness to the beer. So these aromatic oils, they don't like higher temperatures. So if you're going for a lot of hop flavor, you tend to use these guys at the end of the boil, or maybe dry hop with them where they're not exposed to a lot of high temperatures for a long time. So those oils sort of stay in solution. They don't sort of they sort of dissipate if they get boiled too long. The resins, on the other hand, are kind of the opposite, where the longer you boil them, the more and more bitter they become. So if you're making a beer, you put a bittering charge of hops in, usually at the beginning of boil, and those hops are going to boil for that whole time and hopefully give you that targeted bitterness you want. Now, your later hops will give you, if you do hops in the middle of boil, at the end of boil, those are going to give you a certain amount of bitterness, but the closer you do to the end of boil, you're going to get less bitterness and more flavor and aroma generally. So variety-wise, I like to think, I kind of put hops into two categories. You have Old World and New World hops. So your Old World hops, which are older, your English hops. They're East Kent Goldings and Fuggle are the primary two ones. There's some other varieties. And again, a lot of countries are making new hops, but they're breeding with American hops. So I'm kind of talking about sort of the original hops. So East Kent Goldings, a marmalade, spicy, woody. Fuggle, definitely woody, grassy, herbal. Tea-like. Certainly you could describe those two guys like that. And so, for example, our Shearwater IPA, it's made with it's supposed to be an English IPA, so it's made with all English or English-style hops. We also use a hop called Willamette when I can't get Fuggle, which is an American-grown version of Fuggle, but it tastes quite a bit. So again, a lot of that herbal, grassy, woody, marmalade, all that stuff I was talking gets imparted into the beer either through brew house or through dry hopping. Over in Europe, you have your noble hops like your Czech Saaz. You have in Germany, you have Hallertau, Mittelfrüh, and Tettnang, and a number of other ones. And those, like the English ones, they're more subtle and more rounded. They tend to deliver a good deal of spice to the beer, sometimes baking spice depending on the variety. Some subtle citrusiness, some subtle fruitiness, but they're definitely, they call them noble because they generally have this very refined character to them. I tend to use noble hops in a lot of the Pilsners and German lagers that I make. In the gold, I use all Liberty. Again, Liberty, like the Willamette and the Fuggle, the Liberty is derived from Hallertau Mittelfrüh, the German hop, but it's American grown, but it still has a good deal of that spicy, kind of noble-y character, maybe a little fruitier. So the gold, for being kind of an entry-level beer, we use a decent amount of hops in that beer. So that gold will be imparted with a lot of that noble sort of hop character. So moving from Europe over to the New World, that's North America, South America, Australia, New Zealand, the hops are going to be a bit different like that. Cascade is one of the oldest kind of New World hops out there, I'd say. Citrus, grapefruit, some pine in there. Our Warbear uses that. And then you have your other kind of newer varieties in the New World. You have Amarillo, which we use in our Warbear. Again, more citrus, maybe some apricot-y fruitiness. Simcoe, Mosaic, Citra, our newer hops. Again, have citrus, have some pine, some dank kind of pot-like notes, some mango fruitiness. Galaxy's another one, I believe that's Australian, and that has a lot of those characters as well. So the one thing about a lot of these New World hops, a little goes a long way, where with all the English and the noble European hops, we tend to, if I want them to stick out, I tend to have to use more because they're, I often make the comparison to like red wine grapes, like your really mellow red wine grapes, your Merlots, your Pinots, and then you have your bold wine grapes like your Cabs and your Shirazes and stuff where they're big. So you can think of the New World hops as a little going a long way, really bam in your face. Your English and your noble European hops being more nuanced, more subtle, more rounded. Anyway, so basically, like with the malts, the type of hop we use and how we use it definitely affects and can get imparted into that beer. And usually when you're tasting beer, you should be tasting some of that, some of that character. So anyway, yeast is next. If you have any questions, let me know. And cheers. Bye.